Okay, it's Roger once again, Mudfossil University, with a little controversial discussion about the Michell-Hegdes skull that has been apparently declared a modern forgery, fake, whatever you want to call it, and I totally disagree with that. Now, what I would like to point out is several things right now, and then we're going to go look at some anatomy and so forth. Now, you see that? That right there is his lip, and it's twisted up like that. You see his nose is all crushed back. His chin is, is flattened out here in the front. You see his brain. You have this clear area in the back. The brain has shifted forward. He was laying on his face, and that's why this is wrinkled up. His nose is flattened out, and his chin is flattened out. The brain is shifted forward because he was laying down face first. Now, secondly, I want you to see this. In the back of the eye cavity, you have this structure coming down from the eye cavity. So that's a nerve. Now, you see all of this striping here and all of this stuff and all coming back from the front and coming from the back. These are neurons. All right, now I'm going to show you the anatomical of this. Now, the thing that has distressed me, and I cannot tell you why, but I can see that everything has been so completely replaced by clear silicates, and that is the key. This happens in there's some chemistry that occurs in a geothermal area with some clear non-invaded water that eventually replaces the organic matter with silicates, platypolar little clear silicates, the quartz. And that's what you see here. Now, I cannot account for these teeth. I don't know what to say. They are so perfect that it makes it look silly, but there is just too much to overlook. The thing is that if you're going to go by the teeth to say, oh, this discounts everything, I can't say that. Because I'm going to show you why I can't say that. Remember the brain shift. Remember all the patterns of the fibers and going all over the brain. The brain shifted forward, the nose crushed, the chin crushed, the lip lifted up. The jaw is articulated. The lower jaw comes off on this. Which fascia does this. It separates everything in your body. Now, let's look at the anatomical and biological things. All right, this is from a place called blogmichael.com. Now, you just remember from the orbit of the eye coming straight back, there's that thing comes straight out of the orbit of the eye. That's the optical nerve. This is a YouTube on video. It's from Ronald James TV shows, and it's Bill Holloman and the Michell-Hegdes Crystal skull. Now, he's the keeper of the skull, and I did contact him, and this was several years ago, and I really don't remember how it ended, but I don't think he was interested in going any further with this, but I'm not sure. He wasn't interested in discussing it with me, let me put it that way, as I recall it. Now, what his intention is going forward, I don't know, but you don't hear much about this thing. But listen to what he has to say, because I feel this thing is correct. Now, he's talking about these crystals inside the skull, prisms. He calls them prisms inside the skull. Well, they're not prisms. They are the neural pathways, and they are the actual locations in the brain that do things. And I'm showing the anatomy and the physiology and all that stuff in other areas. But what you want to look at is, and I will point them out as we go along, he's going to excite this thing with a photon. It's just more than it's a light thing, which probably covers all the spectrum of the light. So let's listen to what he has to say.
That's just another one of the mysteries that comes to the skull. But we found that when we were using a photon camera that shows energy, and by watching it and separating the skull from the top from the jaw, that the energy was not so great in the jaw until we put it together. It was like a it was like a key going in a lock. So that was kind of an unusual thing. So
The jaw is completely articulated. You lift it out just like your own jaw. You can move it up and down. It comes off.
the jaw is a very important part of the whole skull. I'll tell you, there's all kind of stories. You know, it could have been, they say, made in Germany. They say made in the Mayas made it. They say Atlanteans made it. They say it was brought from people from the Star People. So where it really comes down to is more mystery than there is truth. It's hard to say what the truth is, because as far as making something like this in Germany, the Germans were very good at working with crystal. But in seeing what the crystal skull has with the built-in prisms.
That's the key right there. He's talking about these things are built-in prisms. Those are literally the nerves, and they react to light. That has to be what it is, because it just has to be. This is the neural pathways. You can see different areas are being excited. This is not something that was constructed by people. There's just no way to account for this. Watch the interaction of the light. It's just fabulous.
The eye sockets, the fact that even when we did tests with Smithsonian recently with the electron microscopes, and they thought they could find all this stuff, they could not find any tool marks or anything on the top. Now that they kind of dismissed that, but that's pretty amazing. And so, where it came from, I think it came from somebody with great intelligence, greater than what we have today.
Well, he goes on and speculates about this and that, but he's just a regular guy, so they discount him, they throw him out, like, oh, he's nobody because he's not in a PhD or something. He has something that is extremely valid. They won't even look at it, really. I mean, they looked at it and they just discounted it because they couldn't find anything to say against it. So they just let it go. Now, he's trying to bring it forth, but this was before even 2012, because he mentions 2012. Let me see if I can find out when this video goes back to. Yeah, it's 2009, so that's 10 years ago almost. But I did contact him, and he's not interested in proceeding forward with me, but I hope maybe he would see this video that I'm doing, and he has an extremely valid artifact here. Now I'm just going to show you that it's completely articulated.
There's no other skulls that are anatomically correct, and also the fact is that it's in two pieces, and that's what makes it really special. Yeah, they've made tests on other skulls, and they try to determine where they came from and how they were made, and there's all this different talk, but when it comes to right down to the bottom line, when you say, hey, it's in two pieces, it's not able to be made, they even would have trouble even doing it today. Okay, how was it made? Somebody did it.
All right, there is no answers to this from mainstream science. This is extremely valid in every single way. Now, the teeth, they say, oh, the teeth are too perfect. Well, I don't know about that. They do seem to be pretty perfect, I have to be honest with you, and I can't account for that, but I can account for literally every other thing that you see. Okay, this is from somebody called Rakuten. Now, that is a crystal tendon enthesis, and I can show you why I can say that. You see this ball here? You see that area surrounding that completely round ball? You see all that little striping looking stuff and the rainbow effect? It's clear quartz crystal. Now, what happens with the quartz crystal, it doesn't just completely fill everything in. It has to attach to certain surfaces. And this thing has surfaces in it, and I'll show you why, because it's a tendon ball, and I'll show you the surfaces. All right, what that was that we saw before was one of these stone balls. Now, this is slightly eroded, and you can see the inside structure, which was causing all that rainbow effect inside, because what happens is the platypolar silicates, and I'll explain this later, they will start to attach to surfaces and then they will grow in certain planes as they begin, and then they will fill in and make a matrix of clearness. But let me show you some other these tendon balls. They're all over the earth. And that particular one, I'm sure somebody buffed and cleaned the surface of it, or polished it, whatever. But they are round, and they are tendon balls that anchor the bodies of creatures together. And that's what holds you together, is these tendon balls. And there's thousands of them in your body. And they are all over the earth. And I have many videos on them. These are the same stone balls, only these stone balls are in the surface skin. And what they do is they hold the skin together with little tiny straps all over the place. And these balls invest in the layer of skin flesh, which is nothing more than clay. And it's just like putting putty over these balls, all spread out with straps running all through. And that is what anchors your skin so that it can stretch and come back and stretch and come back in every different direction. And I'll show a different picture about this. All right, you see all these little tiny balls with these straps and how they're all woven. They can stretch out and come back, stretch out and come back, stretch out. That's what your skin does. This is called areolar tissue. And if you had a layer of putty over the top, which is your skin, the top coat of your skin, this is what anchors it to the bottom coat of your skin. And when the straps erode away, it leaves these balls. This is on Mars. Mars is exactly the same as Earth. This is skin on Mars. The last ones I showed you, all the little balls all over the desert floor there, that is the skin on Earth. And what is below it is the lower layer of your skin, on a creature. Above it is the skin that you see on the surface. It presents itself to the outside world. And in between that outside world skin and the basement layer skin, you have areolar tissue, this stuff with all these little holes in it. And it's not really holes in there, they're fleshy, and they can squish around. That's how your skin works, and now the flesh of your body can move and return to its normal position. And these here are eroded away because this is on Mars. And on Mars, it does not have the aggressive erosion that we have here. This is just sort of wind-swept. But these are also quite large, I'm sure. I don't know exactly the scale, but they're probably pretty good size. And as I frequently do, I got off course here heading towards Mars. But I'm just trying to show you things are alive. This is the Mars crab. This is the surface of Mars. This red dust, the reason it's red is because it's skin cells and it's eroding from the flesh that was here. This is the layers of flesh. That is an arterial blood vessel with all the little tiny blood vessels penetrating into, see, it's coming from down here. Let's see. That's the where it is, and this is expanded, obviously you can see that. This is flesh, and in between the layers of the strong part and the pulling part of your meat is this red bloody stuff that erodes out because it's very, very soft. There's no structure to it. It's like blood vessels. And you see it all erodes here. That's why. Now that's your vein. That has no return. It has just one big major return coming back. There are some spikes that go here and there, but not like the veins. I mean the arteries. The arteries go down with all kinds of different structure feeding into the muscles because it needs it to do business. Now, that is Mars. That is muscle. That is an artery. That is a vein. That is blood cells eroding from a dead planet which was alive once as Earth is alive. And that's some more Mars shots. Those are they call them Mars blueberries. Those are the little anchors. And this is the basement layer of skin. Above it was this, making the areolar tissue. And at the top of the areolar tissue is your skin. And your skin is extremely loaded with silicon. It's 50 times more dense with silicon than it is in anywhere else on the body because it is the strong structural, really tough stuff that has to present you to the rest of the world. Silicon stuff. Now, I know I got way off track here, but all of this stuff is related because we're talking about silica, and silica replaces the organic material in a lot of the mud fossils we're talking about. A lot of this is silica replacement. And other things are transition metals, which will invade and cause the colors and so forth. This particular Michell-Hegdes skull, and all of the ones that come out as pure crystal, the very clear crystal, that's SiO2, SiO4. It's platypolar silicates in such a manner as to create a glassy effect that you can see right through very clearly. Now, they will also set up these platypolar silicates, and then there can be obstructions to them that can cause them to have inclusions, and can cause them to change directions of the plane of the silicates. And that is what he's talking about, where they set up these prisms inside. They're not prisms, they replane how those shingles lay. They're just consider them platypolar silicates, consider them shingles. They come up, one plate clicks to the other one, they have a polarity, so they have to line up in exactly a certain manner, but all of a sudden they bump into something. Just like a shingle would bump into the edge of a roof or something where it had to make a change in the slope, and that's what happens to these platypolar silicates. Then you get this crystal effect where you're getting a prism. That's what it is. It's hitting molecular, organic molecules inside the skull, and that don't just wash away. The nerve fibers don't go away. For some reason, they don't go away. And that's why you see all that fabulous looking color inside the crystal skull. So I got way off base here and there. I went into the tendon balls and everything. But it's all related. Everything can turn into crystal if it's in the right conditions, in the right place. In Alabama, I believe it's Alabama, Arkansas, maybe it's Arkansas, they have these crystal, gigantic pieces of crystal they find all the time. That is found in voids, in vugs, in holes. Those holes will allow a crystal to grow into just a perfect huge crystal spike with the points on it, and they just look fabulous. That is growing inside of a hole. That does not grow inside of an organic structure like this brain. Okay, that's the lady that says she found it, and she says she found it in Belize in 1924. She was 17 years old. She's 100 years old now when she's talking about this, and this goes back, 10 years or more ago, 15 years, maybe 20 years ago. I'm sure she's not alive now, and there is a new holder of the skull, which I had discussed this with him, but didn't really get anywhere. But anyway, I believe this is real. I think she's 100% correct. Now, there was some story about it being bought by her husband or whoever Hedges was, Michell-Hegdes, I guess it was Hedges, bought this skull in 1943, they say, from Sotheby's. Now, I don't know anything about that. But I'm going to tell you, what I see is what I see. That other part, I can't really find any real details on that. Maybe if somebody could present something with real detailed information about what it was, then I could look at that. But I can't find anything that overrides what I'm seeing. Okay, remember the Michell-Hegdes skull. This is the neural pathways of, they're doing thermal imaging and all kinds of different ways of looking at what is literally inside the brain of a human being. And these different colors indicate different activities and different regions that are being accessed to do certain jobs in your body. They're trying to understand this, and when they break a certain place here and there, you lose a certain ability and so forth. And they're really doing a lot of work on this. Very, very, very interesting. Now, remember the Michell-Hegdes skull, where the optic nerves come back. This is the optic region up here. This is the front of the skull. That's where your brain stem comes down. The back of the skull is here. Now remember the Michell-Hegdes skull. This area here is completely clear, completely clear. There's no fibers. and about here the brain starts. So there's a clear area. That tells me, and you can see from the face, the lip and the nose and the chin are all flattened out. He was laying, or it's a she, whatever it is, was laying forward on the face. And this drifted forward, the brain settled more forward. This filled with the type of clear quartz that that has no inclusions in it. So that's what happened there. And you can see all of these fibers in that other, well, here, let me just show you something right here. This is really interesting. Look at all these patterns here. Now I'm going to show you a brain. Now this is where the brain stem would come down. So let's go look at this here. All right, this goes back, this book goes back, 20 years or so probably. But they knew all of these things were here. Look, look. They knew all that. But they didn't know it. They don't have any names for it. There's nothing that doesn't say controls the eyes, controls the hearing, controls the thought, whatever it is. But that is what these are doing. There's your brain stem. This is the forward part of your brain. And they understood all this, but didn't really understand it. But if you cut that, you might lose your left arm or something. I don't know. This is the kind of thing that they're mapping out right now. What affects what? And they can, with all of these thermal imaging and so forth, they can actually watch in real time what is happening in these neural pathways. Very, very interesting. All right, now I want you to look at this. This is the eyeball cavity here. You see the way the muscles, whoops, come over. You see the way the muscles cone back like this? They come back like this. When you look at the Michell-Hegdes skull, you're going to see a big cone coming back, and that is the optic nerve. And that optic nerve lights up. When they light up inside that skull, it comes out the optic nerve. There's actually literally fibers in there. You see them? You see these little tiny fibers? They're almost like fiber optics. I don't know what to say. This is what it is. Now, something I want to mention, too, speaking of fiber optics, is that everything is coated with fascia. Every single fiber in your body and every single cell and so forth. Now, my feeling is that all of the neural pathways, all of the nerves and so forth, have an additional little coating of fascia around them that really is almost identical to the fiber optics that we see, because those are nothing more than glass pulled through glass. So they have a glass tube inside of the outside layer of glass, and the outside layer of glass keeps the light on the inside layer of glass. And I believe that's what's happening here. The fascia keeps the light inside these little neural pathways. You can see that actually happening inside the brain, and inside when he shines those different photon arrays in there. This is a mud fossil brain sent to me, and I don't know who sent me these pictures, but they sent me a whole bunch of them, and if they could identify themselves and leave me some information about it and inform us, that would be fabulous. Now, this is a mud fossil brain, and this is the esophagus, and I believe that is a little bit of the tongue, and you can see the layers that we are constructed in, and we are in layers. I don't know what else to say. I've seen it everywhere on the structure of the human body. Once you petrify, you display these layers. I cannot explain it, but it's in all parts of the body. Now, this is the sinus cavity, and up above is the nasal passages, and that I'll show you because she cleaned this. And again, I don't know who I got it from, so I'd like to credit them, but this is the exterior of the brain. Of course, this is the front of the brain. That's the back where the neck is. Now, let's go from there. Now, this is a fabulous shot of that same brain, and you can see it's gone into virtually crystal. It's headed into crystallization. Let me put it that way. It's very close. You can see all the fibers within the matrix of the tissues, and up in here you can see the light is coming through that brain, and we can see up inside the nasal cavities out through the brain. So this eventually will turn, I believe, crystallized. I can't prove that, but I believe it's demonstrating that. All right, these are crystal caves. This is the same sort of situation that happens with that brain that I'm showing, and with the crystal Hedges, Michell-Hegdes skull. Now, you can see these fibers, and this is mineralization, and this up here is a dome which covers these and surrounds these crystals, because this was a tendinenthesis. And I will show you, these are the mineralization of the tendinenthesis, and usually there is more material surrounded with something else in here. No, there's not usually these big void spaces, and I believe it's more like silicon dioxide that is up in this area, and they turn into these crystals in the body, and then they turn into the clear crystals as the geothermal action happens to them. And I'll show you what they start out like in the anatomy of a creature. And I'm showing the things in the world are absolutely enormous, what covered this earth, and they talked about titans, and I'm giving every bit of credence to that, because the creatures that I'm finding are just absolutely enormous. Now, I can't. There's nothing I can do to prove what happened in the past, but I can show you what happened, what's here. I can't account for it. Oh, what did they eat? How could they breathe? How tall were they? How could they walk around on the earth? I can't answer any of that stuff. I can just show you what's here, and I'm going to show you what created this. All right, I don't know where this came from. It just came off the internet, so I don't have anybody to attribute it to. I'm sorry, but anyway, this is how these tendon balls build, and they start out like this, and then they grow, and they this is the mineral. You see the yellow, and then they turn real spiky, and this is what you end up with. That is what you're seeing in a crystal cave, and all around the outside you get this red bloody stuff, which protects it from the bone, so it's like a cushion around it, and then the stalks come out. These are very, 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 very hard, and they're made to implant in your body and everywhere in your body. And there's other places where they're just completely balls, and I will show you that, because this is very important for them to understand that the earth is life. It's alive. It was alive, and everything that was on it was at one point alive. The creatures were enormous, and the tendons were enormous because the creatures were enormous. And this is extremely important to understand. These are the tendon balls. These little tiny balls on these little tiny straps do everything to hold you together in your body. They do ligaments, which is bone to bone. They do tendons, which is bone to muscles. They do skin, which is the areolar tissue in your skin, and the little balls hold the skin, and there's little straps going back and forth, so you can flex your skin and it returns to its normal position. And those are the giant tendon balls they find all over the earth, because the creatures were giant. All right, I showed you the tendon balls on the straps. There they are. That's the ball. That's the strap. And this is where it should anchor into. It's pulled out. They're not supposed to be pulled out. That is an anchor. These straps and the balls, and there's tons of them. There's hundreds of them in every, well, not hundreds, but there's dozens of them in every one of your joints. In some places, there's hundreds of them. And everywhere on your skin, they are everywhere. And I will show you how I can make that claim. You see those balls? They find them all over. They say, well, we can't figure these out. They're concretions. They're not concretions. Those are the anchors that hold this is the top layer of skin, and these hold the top layer of skin to the lower layer of skin. There's tiny little straps that filter everywhere, and that allows your skin to move and then come back to where it's supposed to be. It's called areolar tissue, and guess what? It's on Mars, and I will show you what happens on Mars, because the straps on Mars don't erode like the straps on Earth, because the straps on Mars are just being sanded. The straps are the weak part. The balls really insert, and I will show you that in Mars right now. All right, this was after she cleaned it all out, and you can still see all of this variegation. It's extremely detailed, and this, I believe, is a blood entry area coming up, whatever the artery is that comes in there, because that's arterial, is my thinking. Probably the carotid artery. Now, this is, again, the esophagus, and I'll show you some other pictures. She's absolutely fabulous, and I'm so sorry I lost that, but I'm sure she'll contact me back. Now, these are the lobes of the brain, and they just deteriorate in that manner. All right, here's some serious details. Now, this, because we're going to be going into the Michell-Hegdes skull in a minute. Now, you can see it's taken on a crystallized form, and you can see all of the fibers that are in that make up the. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and there's a lot of nerve fibers and so forth in here that you can literally see. They stick out. Now, of course, that sinus membrane was over here, and these are the sinus cavities up in here. Now, I believe, I'm just, I could be wrong. If somebody is anatomist would like to speak about it, that's fine. All right, so let's go on a little further because I have some other ones to show you. Okay, this was on Amazing Geologists the other day. That is a fabulous group, Amazing Geologists. Unbelievable stuff. And, they're showing all these things, and I don't think they fully understand what they have there, and I'm trying to comment and point towards the biology of what they're holding in their hand. That's a brain. And you can see the same sort of look as the one that I showed in the previous spots. Now this is opalized, and instead of filling in here with just crystals and so forth, like quartz, there's a lot of blood chemistry in here, which means there's a lot of transition metals. And that is what's in your body, your blood, is transition metals. And this apparently has the blue and the greens and so forth. And I'm sure this came out of Australia. Almost all of them do. The Yoa region has the creature type ones. And then over in the other areas in Australia, they have the marine ones. But this, I'm sure, probably came from the Yoa region, but I'm not certain of that. But I can tell you one thing, that is an opalized brain. And it is opalized hearts. I have an opalized heart, I'll show you. They're absolutely fabulous. The details are amazing. Now this, I can't really see any major patterning of the brain that I can make out. It's just been invaded. Although this area here, I believe, is the rear of the brain going down towards the medulla oblongata and all that stuff in the back. Pretty sure of that. Alright, I showed you that tendon ball before, and I have tons of videos on these. This is one of those tendon balls. That's a guy walking on the strap that runs down to the tendon ball, and the mat part that it invests into, the meat part, has eroded away because it's a different material. This didn't get aggressively attacked by whatever chemistry is there. It attacked the mat, and it left the balls all over the place. That's a ball, that's a ball, these are balls here, that's a ball, they're everywhere. And that strap comes down to them. And that is a tendon ball, and in us you can't even hardly see that with a microscope. Okay, so once again, I think I've made my case for what I have presented, and if anybody would like to refute that, I would certainly be interested in that refutation. So once again, Roger signing off from the Citadel of Truth, Mudfossil University.